The year was 2023, and the world had changed. Governments had grown more powerful, technology more pervasive, and the people more complacent. The United States, like many nations, had embraced a new era of control, cloaked in the guise of safety and security. The centerpiece of this transformation was the National Alert System, NAS. The NAS was hailed as a technological marvel, a means of ensuring the safety of citizens in an increasingly uncertain world. It was introduced with the grand promise of rapid response to natural disasters, terrorist threats, and other emergencies. To the public, it seemed like a lifeline, a digital guardian always watching over them. But beneath its innocuous exterior, the NAS harbored a sinister purpose. The government had devised it not just as a tool for communication, but as a means to control the population, to quash dissent, and to ensure unwavering obedience. The first hint of the NAS' true capabilities came during a nationwide test conducted on a crisp autumn morning. The government assured its citizens that it was merely a simulation, an exercise in readiness. But the truth was far more disturbing. As the clock struck noon, every cell phone, television, and radio across the nation came to life with an eerie message. National Alert System test. This is a drill. Please remain calm. It was a message that would be etched into the collective memory of the nation. Minutes turned into hours as the test continued, and unease swept through the population. Some reported feeling a subtle shift in the air, a strange sensation that made the hair on their arms stand on end. Others spoke of a distant haunting hum that seemed to reverberate in their bones. Then it began. People started to disappear. At first, it was a single person here, a family member there. They would be talking one moment, and in the blink of an eye, they were gone, leaving nothing behind but a faint echo of their voices. Loved ones screamed in disbelief, reaching out for those who had vanished, but their desperate grasp only found empty air. Panic spread like wildfire. Chaos erupted in the streets as people desperately tried to understand what was happening, but no one had answers. All they had were questions, fears, and grief. The government's response was swift and decisive. They declared a state of emergency, imposing martial law in a desperate attempt to regain control. Armed forces flooded the streets, their orders vague and ominous. Curfews were enforced, and anyone who questioned the disappearances was labeled a threat to national security. As the disappearances continued, the government maintained a facade of concern, urging citizens to stay in their homes, assuring them that they were doing everything in their power to investigate the situation. But behind closed doors, they worked tirelessly to cover up their involvement, to erase any trace of their complicity in the nightmare. Conspiracy theories began to circulate, and a growing number of citizens suspected the government's hand in the disappearances. It was widely believed that the NAS had been weaponized, used to manipulate and control the population, but without concrete evidence, those who dared to speak out were swiftly silenced. Amidst the chaos, a small group of survivors, united by their shared loss and their determination to uncover the truth, came together. They called themselves the Vanished, and they dedicated themselves to unraveling the mystery of the NAS and its connection to the disappearances. Their journey was perilous as they navigated a landscape fraught with danger and surveillance. They uncovered classified documents, hacked into government databases, and interviewed insiders who had grown disillusioned with the regime. What they discovered was a chilling web of dissent and manipulation. The NAS had been intentionally engineered to tap into the very fabric of human consciousness. It could manipulate thoughts, emotions, and perceptions, effectively erasing individuals from the mind of others. The disappearances were not physical, but psychological, a mass-scale gaslighting of the population. The Vanished understood that they had to expose the truth to the world, to break the government's stranglehold on the nation's psyche, but doing so would not be easy. The government surveillance apparatus was vast, and dissent was viciously crushed. Undeterred, the Vanished embarked on a daring plan to infiltrate the NAS control center. It was a high-stakes mission that would require them to breach heavily fortified government facilities and disable the system's manipulative capabilities. As they made their way through the labyrinth corridors of the control center, they encountered grotesque experiments, evidence of the government's willingness to sacrifice its own citizens for power and control. The horrors they witnessed only fueled their determination. Finally, they reached the heart of the NAS Control Center, a sprawling chamber filled with banks of servers and screens. It was here that they would broadcast the truth to the world, exposing the government's malevolent agenda. But as they prepared to send their message, the government's forces closed in. A fierce firefight erupted, with the Vanished fighting desperately to protect their mission. Bullets whizzed through the air, and a stench of burning electronics filled the room. In the end, the Vanished succeeded in broadcasting their message, revealing the government's dark secrets to the world, but the cost was high. Many of them fell in battle, their sacrifice a testament to their unwavering resolve. The nation watched in horror as the truth unfolded before their eyes. The government's manipulation, the disappearances, the systematic control, they could no longer be denied. The people, awakened from their collective nightmare, rose up in anger and revolt. The government, desperate to cling to power, unleashed its full military might on the uprising. The streets ran red with blood as citizens fought back against the tyranny that had gripped them for so long. In the end, the government's grip and power was shattered, but the scars of the NAS disaster would forever haunt the nation. The survivors, united by their shared trauma, were determined to ensure that such a nightmare would never again happen. And so, the nation emerged from the darkness of the NAS disaster, forever changed. It was a place where the line between reality and manipulation had been blurred, where the wounds of their past served as a stark reminder of the fragility of freedom, and where the battle to reclaim their minds and their future had only just begun. In the wake of the revelation about the government's malevolent use of the National Alert System, chaos reigned through the nation. The government's grip on power had been broken, but the cost had been high. Cities lay in ruins, and the scars of the conflict were etched into the hearts of its citizens. With the truth exposed, a new government emerged, one that promised transparency, accountability, and the protection of civil liberties. The survivors of the NAS disaster, who had become known as the Awakened, played a crucial role in shaping the future of the nation. The Awakened had become a symbol of resistance, a testament to resilience of the human spirit. They were hailed as heroes, their stories of sacrifice and courage inspiring a generation to stand up against the oppression. The government, now led by those who had once fought against it, vowed to dismantle the surveillance state and to ensure that such horrors would never happen again. But rebuilding a shattered nation was no easy task. The scars of its past ran deep, and trust was a commodity in short supply. The Awakened, along with the new government, faced a monumental challenge of restoring not only infrastructure, but also faith in the system. One of the first steps was to provide support and counseling to those who had witnessed the disappearances and the horrors of the government's manipulation. The survivors, burdened by the trauma they had endured, needed healing and closure. Community centers were established to offer therapy and support groups, allowing people to share their experiences and find solace in the company of others who had suffered. It was a slow and painful process, but over time, the survivors began to find a sense of catharsis and renewal. As the nation rebuilt, the Awakened focused on dismantling the remains of the surveillance state. They worked tirelessly to declassify government documents, exposing the full extent of the NAS capabilities and the extent of the government's manipulation. With each revelation, public outrage grew. The citizens demanded justice for those who had orchestrated the nightmare, and trials were held for the high-ranking officials responsible. Some were sentenced to prison, while others faced international tribunals for crimes against humanity. But justice alone could not mend the nation's wounds. The government understood that it needed to go further to regain the trust of its citizens. They implemented sweeping reforms to protect civil liberties, ensuring that the rights of the people would never again be violated in the name of security. The NAS itself underwent a complete overhaul. Its capabilities were limited to genuine emergency alerts, and strict regulations were put in place to prevent abuse. The government surveillance apparatus was dismantled, and laws were enhanced to protect the privacy of citizens. However, not all wounds can be healed through legislation and reforms. Some of the Awakened, scarred by the horrors they had witnessed, could never fully return to a sense of normalcy. They had become guardians of the nation's memory, ensuring that the lessons of the past would never be forgotten. In the years that followed, the nation slowly began to heal. The cities, once battlegrounds, were rebuilt with a renewed sense of purpose. and a sense of unity emerged as the nation came to terms with its painful history. The Awakened continued their work, advocating the transparency, accountability, and the protection of civil liberties. They remained vigilant, but even as the nation rebuilt, a shadow of doubt lingered. The scars of the NAS disaster ran deep, a constant reminder of the fragility of democracy and the dangers of unchecked power. The Awakened understood that their fight was not over, that the battle for a just and free society was ongoing. And so, the nation stood at a crossroad, forever marked by the horrors of the past, but determined to forge a brighter future. It was a place where the resilience of the human spirit had triumphed over oppression, where the lessons of history were etched into the national consciousness, and where the commitment to freedom and justice burned brighter than before. As the Awakened looked to the future, they knew that their vigilance would be the nation's greatest defense against the darkness of the past. They were the guardians of the nation's memories, and they would ensure that the nightmares of the NAS disaster would never be repeated. Thank you for listening to Unmasking the Dark Side of the National Alert System. If you enjoyed this story, please leave a like, and if you enjoy hearing stories from me, please subscribe and become a resident of Hill Street, and let me know how I'm doing in the comments. And I hope all of you have a fantastic night.